ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतीरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। Hare Krishna. The reading from.
This is our friend Angie. She's never been to a Bhagavatam class before. You might want to hear a little bit less esoteric.
I'll try to help her. Here we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 31, verses 8 and 9. Madhuraya gira valguvakyaya buddhamanogya pushkarekshana vidikaririma veera muhyatir adarasiduna pyayasvana. Translation, O lotus-eyed one, your sweet voice and charming words, which attract the minds of the intelligent, are bewildering us more and more. Our dear hero, please revive your maidservants with the nectar of your lips. Verse 9. Tava kathamrutam taptha jivanam kavibhiriditam kalmashapaham shravanamangalam srimadattatam bhuvi grinantiye bhuridajana. Translation. The nectar of your words and the descriptions of your activities are the life and soul of those suffering in this material world. These narrations, transmitted by learned sages, eradicate one's sinful reactions and bestow good fortune upon whoever hears them. These narrations are broadcast all over the world and are filled with spiritual power. Certainly, those who spread the message of Godhead are most magnificent. Purport by the servants of Srila Prabhupada. King Prataparudra recited this verse to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu during Lord Jagannath's Rath Yatra festival. While the Lord was resting in a garden, King Prataparudra humbly entered and began massaging his legs and lotus feet. Then the king recited the 31st chapter of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the songs of the gopis. The Chaitanya Charitamrita relates that when Lord Chaitanya heard this verse, beginning Tava Kathamritam, he immediately arose in ecstatic love and embraced King Prataparudra. The incident is described in detail in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 14:4-18, and in his edition, Srila Prabhupada has given extensive commentary on it. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Tadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsham Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamsham He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Tukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim. Yat kripatamaham vande Shri Gurum Dinatari Paramanandam Shri Chaitanya. Hare Krishna. So thank you everyone for being here, and I'm very grateful for an opportunity to speak on these verses. At the same time, not so willing also. This is a very high esoteric section, and I was not sure what to speak, how much to speak. It's like kind of confusing. So I'm going to take a very simple approach. And here also we have some guests in person. So I pray that that Krishna give me the inspiration by the blessings of all the devotees here, something that could be pleasing to him and also worthwhile for all of us to discuss and inspire ourselves in the path of bhakti. Hare Krishna. So here we are reading 31st chapter of the 10th canto, the songs of the gopis. The first verse, they are speaking about glorifying Krishna, that the words of Krishna, like how sweet Krishna's voice is, how charming his words are, because words can be meaningful, but also can also be charming, because sometimes we hear a lot of words which is truth, but it may not be charming always. But here Krishna's words are, it's very sweet, it's very charming, and also it's attracting the minds of the intelligent. And they are saying the words of Krishna are also bewildering them. And here they are saying, please revive, means basically they are asking for Krishna's association in a very intimate way. So, yeah. And here they're clearly saying in the next verse how the nectar of the words and descriptions of Krishna's activities are the life and soul of those suffering in this material world. Because everybody in the material world is tapta jivanam. So we were just reciting these verses in invocation. It says tapta kanchana gaurangi. And here we see tapta jivanam. So this tapta and that tapta is the difference of being under the material energy and being under the spiritual energy. So Krishna has, as a supreme absolute truth, has multifarious energies. He is like, as the Supreme Lord, he is all potent, and he has many types of energies. But there is internal energy and there is external energy. And when the souls who are marginal energies, who are in between these categories, when they take shelter of the internal energy, they are spiritually nourished. When they take shelter of the material energy, they actually go through the tribulations of material existence. In this world, everybody is scorched. So that is what this tapta means. This tapta is basically aggrieved, disturbed, basically scorched by the heat of the material existence. So in the material existence, we are all suffering in this body, the birth, old age, disease, and death. And in between the experiences of the difficulties of living, we also experience some pleasure. Most of the time, we lose in planning for pleasure, in the hopes of enjoying. And majority of the time goes in lamenting that we don't have what we would like to enjoy. Everyone wants to be happy, and it's possible. But what is not possible is to be more happier than others. So in this world, they just don't want to be happy, just happy, but they want to be happier than others. And because of that, there is so much lamentation, there is so much anxiety, fear. So continuously, either externally or internally on a mental level, everybody is just scorched by this heat. everything externally appears well. People are all the time smiling, and they say, "How are you?" They'll be great, amazing. But internally, we are all like having that. We all know the background music. So likewise, internally, there is a background music of sorrow, kind of lacking something, wanting something. So that kind of a background music is always there. And that is the reason the modern world is compensating it with so much advertisement for enjoyment. If everyone was happy, there would be no demand for so many things that we are being shown everywhere. You open your laptop, you open your phone, you walk out the street. Everywhere we are being thrown things at our face to be happy. That means there's so much demand to be happy. That means people are actually not happy. If everybody was happy, you wouldn't see so much being advertised. No business works like that. So in the whole material world, everybody is tapta jivanam. Everyone's life is miserable except when they're connected to Krishna. So here the gopis are very clearly saying how to be actually happy. So they're saying just by discussing the words spoken by Krishna and the words spoken about Krishna. So like the words spoken by Krishna, for example, are the Bhagavad Gita, and the words spoken about Krishna are here what we are reading. The gopis are speaking about Krishna, the various devotees speaking about Krishna in Srimad Bhagavatam. So by discussing these things, we can actually get some relief. It is said, at least during the time when we are in the association of devotees, hearing about Krishna, we experience cessation of the influence of the miseries of material existence. At least the mental level, the anxiety, the fear, the hankering, the lamentation, that internal fire on the mental level comes down when we actually connect with Krishna. And one of the most potent ways to connect with Krishna is to hearing about him. So that is why here we are in the 10th canto, the pinnacle of Srimad Bhagavatam. There are total 18,000 verses. Around 9,000 verses are the first 9 cantos, but the remaining 9,000 verses are like the 10th, 11th, and the 12th cantos. That is among them also predominantly it is the 10th canto. And 10th canto is primarily not so much of an application-oriented canto. In the sense, it's not that reading about Krishna itself is an application of Bhakti Yoga. Hearing about Krishna is in itself an application of Bhakti Yoga in our personal lives. A lot of times we will hear certain things and we will see how does this apply to me personally? Oh, well, these verses, if you see, gopis are asking for the lips of Krishna, it may not really exactly apply practically in the same way. How am I going to ask for the lips of Krishna? Yes, well, we can do it, but are we on that stage? If not, at least continue to hear about this. Because this is not the mundane sex affair of a boy and a girl. So this kind of shakes us from our illusion that I'm not this body. I'm a spirit soul. My eternal connection is with the Supreme Lord. And he has a personal life. His life is not always centered around me. Rather, my life has to always be surrounded by his pastimes or his existence. It's not the other way. His existence is not centered around us. He is not coming here so that we will have mental peace. We will have happiness. In a sense, yes, he is coming here for giving fortune to all of us. But he is not a product to be utilized for our happiness. Spirituality or Krishna consciousness is not a product for us to just become happy. Krishna is not an utility. Krishna is the ultimate object of love. So our existence needs to be aligned with Krishna's will. Krishna's existence, Krishna's pastimes. So here the 10th canto is showing what is Krishna's personal life is all about. What is the personal life of the associates of Krishna? What are their worries in their daily life? Their worry is not about making money. Their worry is not about having a partner. Their worry is not about uh, uh, having a child, or their worry is not about having the difficulties to handle with living in this life, living in this world. Their worry is not about having better health. But these worries are not like, they are not irrelevant when we live in this world. We do need those things to be stable emotionally, physically, mentally. However, all those things are just for the sake, of advancing spiritually, uh, understanding or re-establishing our relationship with Krishna, without which all the other efforts to live comfortably in this world is just a burden of the beast. It's at best useless, waste of time, because millions of lifetimes we have been doing that. So it's not wrong in applying our attention and effort in doing the needful in those areas. It's not a problem. It's not excluded from our devotional endeavor, but it is not a replacement to our devotional endeavor. Chanting about Krishna, chanting Krishna's names, hearing about Krishna is one of the most important activities in spiritual life. The patience to hear is waning these days. Like you hear like these YouTube shots, there's one song that comes in the background. My patience is waning, is this entertaining? So a lot of times when you sit to hear someone speak about Krishna, it is just so difficult to control the mind and just focus. We are thinking, oh, my patience is waning, is this entertaining? That's all we are bothered about. Is this entertaining? It's not just about entertaining. All things that are enlightening may not be always entertaining. Focus our attention. Try to stop the fluctuations of the mind. It's a science. Just by hearing attentively, like Parikshit Maharaj is doing to Shukadeva Goswami, from Shukadeva Goswami, by hearing from someone whom we respect, someone who we actually can humble ourselves before, and to someone whom we can completely open our hearts and receive what they're trying to say with full faith, that hearing their words, there is no personal agenda here, there is no mental concoction here. It's just pure nectar about Krishna, and also which is relevant to my spiritual life. Just taking in it, just bathing in it is going to actually purify our consciousness. And the effect of that, we will naturally lose any inclination to enjoy this world. That is the effect of Krishna Katha. We don't need to do anything else. We have to humbly, attentively, eagerly, without any ego, really in a very, very humble mood, open our hearts, hear about Krishna. So find a person from whom you can actually hear like this, where you can actually execute this process. Without humility, hearing does not work. Hearing Krishna Katha is not a transfer of information. Oh, this is a new pastime I've never heard. This is a new information that I've never heard. It's good. It's good for the mind. Okay, we can be happy on that level. Not a problem. We can use that story, that pastime, that detail in giving another class. People will be very happy to hear that. They'll probably be nourished on a certain level. However, the purpose is to actually let these things bathe our consciousness and Just by hearing about Krishna attentively, it's the natural effect that we naturally lose interest in enjoying the senses, the same way that a materialistic person does. The moment we find ourselves in that midst of agitation, when the senses are demanding, there is a kind of an agitation that builds in our body. Only those people who make an endeavor to resist will understand that. Unless and until one person does not put efforts to stop the or the like overcome the agitations of the mind and the senses, they may not be able to see the subtleties of how it's starting and how it's manifesting physically. And especially when you want it but you don't you know that you should not do it, and when you try your best to stop by trying to take shelter of Krishna, physically it's tough because there is an agitation in the body. Mentally it's even more tough. Spiritually it is challenging. So the whole training is to, as soon as we see ourselves losing the ability to control our senses and the mind, go back to Krishna. There is a problem. We are not hearing about Krishna. We are undernourished. We haven't given attention. Go back to chanting with attention. Go back to hearing about Krishna with attention. Refocus the way that we are conducting our spiritual life. Realign our attitude in when we engage in these activities of hearing about Krishna and chanting Krishna's names. That's all is there to in a self-realization and achieving love for Krishna. It's a simple process, but it is too simple that we might miss it. So that's why Srila Prabhupada continuously spoke about hearing about Krishna, chanting Hare Krishna, and hearing attentively. A lot of times, Srila Prabhupada said, you don't need to do anything. Just chant and just hear what you're chanting. Don't think. No need to think. The same way, it's not that we need to mindlessly hear. However, we also sometimes just need to put our minds aside. The fluctuations of the mind, the agitations of the mind, the demands of the mind, put it aside and tell your mind, I'm here to just listen to what is being spoken about Krishna attentively. That's all it is there to the process. The moment the mind is parallelly trying to think of something else, bring it back to what is being spoken and note down, and then go on, contemplate on it. What was being told? How can I apply it in my life? So that contemplation is important. However, it is not a parallel processing. Everyone in the modern world is addicted to parallel processing. Hearing, chanting, and analyzing, and application, everything happens at the same time. It's a disease of the modern world. Give it some time. Humbly hear, note down, mark things, then patiently sit, then try to see. That is when honestly you're going to see, what am I even willing to apply this? A lot of times points are fascinating. It's very important. It sounds like very crucial to our spiritual lives. The moment we stop the process of hearing, we go back to our old ways. We don't give time to sit down and honestly have a conversation with ourselves. Am I even willing to apply what I'm hearing? So without that, all this talk of application is very superficial. So let's begin with hearing attentively and chanting and hearing Krishna's name attentively. And there is not much is required. Just this process can actually purify our consciousness, can make us actually stably advancing spiritually towards the goal of Krishna consciousness, which is developing our love for Krishna gradually. Where today we are discussing about the gopis. For us to relish these words of the gopis and enter their moods, it's not just enough to read a commentary. We need a character that is built upon sense control, service to spiritual master, humility, tolerance, and trying to hold that reins of the false ego. We're always in the mood of competing, one, to be one up than others, or we are continuously thinking about judging others. So with all these things, the mind is very, very agitated. So whatever spiritual life the endeavors we put in terms of chanting and hearing, they get very dampened. So the both needs to go hand in hand. So slow down mentally. This is a serious, though simple, it's a serious affair. It's not a goody-goody. It's not like just a casual affair. If you want to realize Krishna, then it's a serious affair. There is a gravity to it. So slow down and take things attentively and be attentive to what's happening internally. So then we can gradually be stable and sober to take more about more of Krishna Katha, and gradually we will be able to relish what the gopis are saying here. And on that level, we are not going to do anything different. On the level of gopis, they are again speaking about Krishna, but that is without any false ego, without any selfish motives, without any material inability. The consciousness is not covered by material energy. The consciousness is fully awakened to spiritual reality. And on that level, hearing about Krishna is the ultimate ecstasy one can experience. And they had the personal association of Krishna, they were in ecstasy. Now they are missing the personal association of Krishna, they are again in ecstasy. And all that they are doing to remember them, to keep themselves in the association of Krishna, is speaking about Krishna as a person. He has a taste, he has a behavior, he has a nature. So on that level of the gopis, one has to be surrendered to the whims of Krishna. If he wants, he will be with you one moment. If he does not, he can forsake you. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu prays, are we ready to be at the whims of another person? So these things are very deep, and gradually building a character based upon the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita as given by Srila Prabhupada, we will be able to understand and gradually purify our hearts so that we can actually become qualified to hear about Krishna on the same level as what the gopis are experiencing. Until then, the process is same. Continue to hear about Krishna, make it more and more attentive, make the heart more and more pure and humble, and eventually we'll continue to hear Krishna in ecstasy. So thank you very much. It is 7:45. Any thoughts, any reflections, anything you'd like to share in person? Yes.
All right, Krishna. Can they hear you? They can hear okay? Yeah. You said it's a very esoteric topic. These girls, these cowherd girls, beckoning, calling Krishna, and acknowledging that that they're very satisfied to hear how delightful he speaks to them, and asking him to kiss them. It's like, it's like you said, it sounds like and the activity is an ordinary boy and girl in this world, but actually their love is pure. And you spoke about the topic of happiness and how sometimes people are seeking pleasure, their own pleasure. There's something selfish about that, and therefore it's not the best. But these girls, they're even asking Krishna to kiss them. They're trying to please the Lord. At one end of the spectrum, there's selfish activity, and then there's this platform of pure love, with no that their happiness is a byproduct of their trying to please the Lord. And there's a phrase, param dvishrana today, that there's a higher pleasure available. And we are in the process of hearing about it and considering how desirable it is, and then actually wanting it, choosing to and wanting it. And then the interesting thing about this is they're appealing to the Lord, they're calling him, and we can do that. Anybody, anywhere can say, Lord, I'm yours. I want to please you. And then Krishna will reciprocate by coming and by endeavoring to please Krishna. We are indirectly, then we are pleased. Prabhupada gives the example that if you're looking in the mirror, of a girl is looking and she's putting on lipstick, in the mirror, the image also has lipstick. So by pleasing Krishna, we are pleased, because that's our nature. We are loving beings, and we do have a relationship with the Lord that has, sometimes we've fallen asleep to that. Anyway, it's a wonderful topic, and it applies to us. Hearing about their love and their longing to please the Lord, and we can also long to please the Lord and be satisfied. Well, glory to Srila Prabhupada. Wonderful class. Anybody else? You want to say something?
It was just, thank you so much. It was a wonderful class. It's so wonderful when you can see such a high topic be made practical. I don't know why, but it made me think we were talking about our attention in the modern world and the suffering, like the tapasya, the fire that burns. It made me feel that the material world is much like an amusement park, right? You have this ecstatic joy for a very brief time, and then these broad reaches of waiting for the anticipation of that next, but very brief. And somehow we have to accept that is the mechanism of the material world. It's okay to have to experience these high pleasures, but in the rhythm of these broad stretches where we don't have. And what is the door out of that? So yeah, thank you. It was wonderful, practical. Hare Krishna.
Yes, thank you. A really great class. As they say, the more you get obsessed with pleasure, the less pleasure you actually get. The people who are obsessed with it, in the end, have less and less of it, because the material world will never fully satisfy us. But thanks again for the class.
Okay. That is a great report. Those who are aspiring for pleasure are not experiencing. Anyone else online?
Bruce has his hand up. You can go first.
Yes, Bruce.
Hare Krishna, good morning. I just a comment and expression of gratitude. I wish I could have this class play in my mind all day long and a repeat record. Just as you were speaking, I'm listening, but I have to say that it was going right over my head at some point. And then I heard you say, listen with attention and slow down. And I actually was able to apply that and listen. And then suddenly I heard the class in a completely more attentive and just comprehensible way. So this idea of, we hear again and again to listen attentively, but even hearing it, listen attentively, we don't listen attentively, or speaking for myself. And for it to penetrate through my mind today with you, I'm deeply grateful. Thank you. Because it changes. I'm smiling. I feel uplifted. As opposed to just you had mentioned like these practical applications without that humility or without that focus. It's kind of just you're filling time and not really reflecting. And this after reflecting on these points is also something that I could use a lot of work on, because it's you walk away from the class, you close the book, you stop the chanting, you put down the harmonium, whatever. Do you continue it after? That's my takeaway is to be able to really find that space after the actual sadhana is finished and continue the internal sadhana, this internal reflection. We're so used to worrying, cultivating, exposing the outer shell, the outer, what we put out to the world, as you mentioned. But that inner work is truly what will put that outer shell much more appealing. Thank you, Sharan. Deeply grateful. Hare Krishna.
Hope Krishna is pleased and makes my mind also attentive. So that is the prayer. That's what I was trying this morning to share, so that I become ashamed when my mind is inattentive. Find myself. Also, another thing to add to the reflection is like that's the difference between Bhakti Yoga and the mundane motivation. Because even a lot of motivators who are not spiritually anchored speak about application of all these wonderful qualities of letting go, being free, and all these kind of concepts are there. They may not have a scriptural basis or a spiritual foundation, but they are also aspiring for it. They recognize that it is important. They value it. But it's not a wishful thinking that is going to manifest all those qualities. Bhakti is not just about, is not giving us, oh, these are the qualities we need to develop, but it is a process. It also gives a process through which we can actually develop those qualities. We don't need to separately endeavor in the sense like it's not that I don't need to control my anger and express it all the time unfiltered. At the same time, if I'm really steeped myself in Krishna, naturally I lose that the tendency to be just angry all the time, because that's coming from a heart which is not satisfied, disconnected from Krishna. That is coming from a heart which is unfulfilled. The moment we go really connect with Krishna, then we see when we feel disturbed, oh, I was not feeling this way when I was really trying to keep myself in the presence of Krishna. So that means I'm going away. Is there a way I can again go back to Krishna's presence in a way? Maybe I can remember his names. I can remember something to anchor myself with Krishna. Then all these agitations can be brought down, and eventually we can go to a place of continuous remembrance. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Bhima Prabhu.
Oh, Hari Bol Prabhu. Wonderful class. Thank you for bringing it down to earth. I don't know anything about cowherd girls and kissing God. But one thing I do know about that it is when you mentioned slowing down, I'm reminded from the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that the mind is like the wind, or Arjuna says the mind is like the wind is easier to, the wind is easier to control. And much like the wind, the horses that I train, especially untrained colts, young colts, are very much like the mind. And that's exactly the process that we use to train young horses, and to break them, or to kind of work the wildness out of them, is that we put them on a lunge line, and we train them to walk first in a circle, and then trot, and then canter, which is a 3-step harmony, and then gallop. And when we have them at, say, trot or canter, they get a little excited and they might get carried away. And then so we bring them back to walking. And that is how I kind of like view what you were saying about we have to bring ourselves back. You said that, bring ourselves back to slowing down. So because the mind will have that tendency, like an untrained colt, to want to run free. And of course, an untrained colt running free is a danger to itself, as well as to the other horses, and especially to you, despite the fact that it is a baby horse, not a baby horse, but a young horse. It can still kill you in a moment just by running over you. So our mind has that same facility. The mind can make a heaven of hell or a hell of heaven, and it certainly can run away on us. And it does, as you said, you know, when we are chanting, when we're trying to spend some intimate time, we often think of, you know, the gopis and this time that they spend with Krishna in the Brahma Muhurt, in the midnight hour. Oh, that's so esoteric, but it's really not. If we think about the analogy with the time that we've been asked by Srila Prabhupada to rise early in the morning and to be alone with Krishna in a very intimate setting, which is alone, and concentrating on Krishna and Krishna alone, that our japa, which is the most fundamental thing that we do, is directly tied to the rasa dance. And that is that we are alone with Krishna, and we have a chance to pay attention to Krishna and to devote all our mind, our heart, mind, and soul, not just tongue deep, as Bhakti Vinod said, not just lip deep, as Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati said, but heart deep. So we have that chance to lunge our mind, and if it gets carried away, we slow down. We make a conscientious effort to say walk. And therefore we are brought back to Krishna's name and also Krishna. So thank you for allowing me to have that revealed within myself, that how much like our sadhana is like training a young horse. Our mind is so much like that. So Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Thank you for a wonderful analogy, Prabhu. It's so enlightening how from practical life you're able to see deep spiritual truths. That's so inspiring. And yeah, hope is like my 2 legs are very deeply stuck in the mud of material enjoyment. So remaining on earth is not a difficult thing because that's the only option I have. But hopefully our eyes are fixed on spiritual reality, and with the help of Srila Prabhupada's teachings and the devotees, we can release our legs that are stuck in the mud of material enjoyment and can eventually get there on the top to experience and serve Krishna in a more pure way and be of some service. Hare Krishna.
Thanks, Gaura, Sharan. Wonderful class. Thanks for helping us getting out of the mud. It's not just feet, it's face, everything. It's all in the mud. This was the class. I was galloping, my horse was galloping, I fell in the mud. And then Guru Sharan came, helped me stand up. And Bhima Prabhu brought a hose, washing off the mud from my face with his comments. Thank you, Prabhus and Prabhujinis, for your association. We live on that. That's our lifeline, the Devotees Association. Thank you so much. So good to see your bright faces. Hare Krishna. Yes, Nancy R. Yes, yes. Hare Krishna. Have a wonderful day. Yeah, get out of the mud and come again tomorrow. Hare Krishna.